to the first installment in our new series, Pride and Prejudice, brought to you by my closet. Today's topic comes from two different people, with Tim Drake Wayne originally suggesting that we do a video about Native Americans, and then Batty Buttercup for making the connection between that and JK Rowling's most recent writing. On March 8th, Pottermore released the first of 3 chapters written by Rowling about the history of magic in North America. This is part of the marketing for the upcoming movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which I've talked about my disappointment in over in another video. It's because of all the white people in it. Given JK's history with belated diversity, it was only a matter of time before something else went wrong. And wrong it did! The first chapter covers the 15 to 1800s and focuses on the indigenous people of North America. However, there are lots of things wrong and offensive with what she wrote, and it made many Native American activists and fans justifiably upset. Unfortunately, this sort of thing is not new. Rowling is just the latest white person to participate in the long tradition of misrepresenting Native Americans. For this video, I'll be focusing on the following 5 offenses. Perpetuating the ideas that Native Americans are all the same, that they're primitive, and that their beliefs are not real and are magical, as well as violating Native traditions to make your writing more interesting, and making money off of Native stereotypes, which pushes Native authors out of the picture. Let's start with number 1. Rowling begins with the Native American magical community, which is wrong. As of 2015, there are 566 federally recognized Native American tribes in the United States, with each one having their own culture, stories, clothing, ceremonies, religious practices, language, lore, etc. Not to mention the ones that were destroyed by European colonists. That's ridiculous! You can't just say European colonist, hashtag not all Europe conquered America. It's also offensive to wear European costumes for Halloween. This is a mockery of something that has cultural significance. Oh, for God's sakes! Those names us white people like to throw around, Cheyenne, Seminole, Miccosukee, Lakota, all of those are unique groups. The difference between referring to these European conquerors as European collectively and referring to Native Americans as a collective is that we, speaking as an American, know that Europe is not just Europe. That it's Spain and France and Greece and Finland, etc. And while you, as an individual, may know that Native Americans have the same diversity, the majority of Americans don't know the importance of tribes in the Native American identity. And that makes it easier to stereotype. There's a reason stereotypes are so crucial to racism. They make people feel comfortable doing it. It's easier to ignore police brutality if you think that all black people are thugs and super predators. Grouping all Native American history and people together isn't just wrong and inaccurate, but it encourages this idea that Native Americans are simplistic and easily definable, which is dehumanizing. Europeans have been doing the exact same thing since they met Native Americans. Either romanticizing them as innocents with inferior technology, a greater connection to nature, and more like children than the greedy and corrupt Europeans, or vilifying them as bloodthirsty devils with the minds of animals who needed to be exterminated for the good of humanity. I'm looking at you, Sepulveda. These ideas are generally referred to as the noble and ignoble savage, respectively. And these ideas persist today. The ignoble savage is the one we see as the brutal warrior, used as mascots for sports teams, and lazy alcoholics who run casinos and do nothing but mooch off of a government that's too good for them. The noble savage is the crying environmentalist, the innocent native who was tricked by those rascally Europeans, and usually somehow connected to a Eurocentric idea of royalty? The ignoble savage is a threat to white and/or Christian culture, and the noble savage is a powerless victim of it. One is to be feared, one is to be pitied. While both are negative depictions that do real harm, the noble savage is the one that non-natives seem to think is good representation. And this is the one that Rowling favors here. She describes Native American wizards as being particularly gifted in animal and plant magic, its potions in particular being a sophistication beyond much that was known in Europe. She probably thought that entire sentiment was a compliment. But she doesn't seem to realize the history in what she's saying. Look at these primitive wizards with their plants and animals, not using wands for proper magic. Is this the tone she was going for? Probably not. While authorial intent does not always matter, impact does. I wonder how many native Harry Potter fans will now have to deal with the expectations that they should really be in the greenhouses or down in the dungeons making potions because your people are just good at that sort of thing. And when you account for the fact that most Americans don't have direct contact with natives on any kind of regular basis, there's really not a reason they should think what they're reading is wrong. That's the whole point of media. It's meant to not not only show us what we ourselves are capable of, but to also expose us to experiences and people that we wouldn't normally encounter. That's why representation is so important. In the chapter, there's a mention of skinwalkers, a being that is part of the Navajo tradition, a crucial detail and surprisingly enough, not mentioned. The legend of the Native American skinwalker has its basis in fact. What Rowling says in the next sentence and later confirmed to a fan on Twitter is that skinwalkers are not real. They were a negative rumor created by non-magical Native Americans to persecute wizards. That sounds creative, right? Wrong! What if she'd said that Jesus was not really the Son of God, but was actually able to do the miracles like feeding a group of 5,000 with a few fish or rising from the dead because he was a wizard? You're a wizard, Jesus. To some people who are not Christian, their reaction might be, that's a creative interpretation of the Christianity myth. But for people who are Christian, it would not only be hurtful, but offensive. I'm sorry that you don't believe in the same things that I do, but for you to brush it off as magic is belittling. Some witches and wizards were accepted and even lauded within their tribes, gaining reputations for healing as medicine men or outstanding hunters. Yeah, I know she wouldn't have said that about priests and pastors. Then all those wet blanket Christians who won't let their kids read Harry Potter because it's anti-Christian would actually have a legitimate complaint. You can brush this off as this just being something in JK's fictional world, but when the group you're talking about has been able to practice their religion legally for less time than you've been alive, maybe that's a clue that it's a little too soon. There's another horrible layer to the whole skinwalker thing, and I'm not gonna mention that word again because it's something that's intimate and sacred to the Navajo people. And you're not really supposed to talk about it if you're Navajo, and definitely not if you're an outsider. Unfortunately, the subject has been used a lot in media, but at least in other cases, there was a Navajo consultant. And what's already started to happen on Twitter is that people are asking intrusive questions about it and demanding that natives explain it to them. Dr. Adrienne Keene, whose blog Native Appropriations is just fantastic, talks about how empowering as a Native American it is to say, no, I'm not going to tell you about my personal traditions. Those are private and they are none of your business. Because one, ever since white people got here, they've violated, intruded, and tried to stomp out this culture. And two, surprisingly enough, you don't actually need to know what this being is to believe Native people who tell you that it's disrespectful and offensive to them. If your friend tells you someone hacked their computer and they're feeling hurt and vulnerable, you say, I'm so sorry that happened. Please let me know what I can do to help. What you don't say is, was it nudes? Do you have a porn addiction? What are you hiding from me? I mean, you'd probably say that if you're a crappy friend. So by extension, if you say that to a Native American person, you're a crappy person. Here's a reminder of what cultural appropriation is. It's taking something from a culture you are not a part of, without the permission of someone from that culture, and stripping it of its original meaning for your personal gain. And that's exactly what Rowling did. She, a white British lady, plucked these things that sounded cool from a culture that her ancestors murdered Native Americans because of, and then she benefited from it. Native authors have a really difficult time publishing things about themselves. Usually because their characters don't conform to the ignoble or noble savage, or because their stories show Native Americans existing today, living among us. The horror! Whenever a white author regurgitates these dated stereotypes, it takes away the spotlight from actual Native stories. I don't think that Rowling was trying to be racist. I think it's obvious it's one of those cases where racism runs so deep that she didn't even realize she was drawing on racist ideas. That does not change the fact that she did. And seriously, she's JK freaking Rowling. She's massively famous and successful, very intelligent and creative, has a huge reach. She should have done way more research before doing this. I think what would have been even better is if she'd collaborated with a Native American author. JK Rowling doesn't have to be the only person to write about the wizarding world. And it wouldn't fix what she did, but an apology and admitting that she's in the wrong would be a good start. Doing the research for this video has made me realize that my own intersectional feminism doesn't include Native American issues as much as it should, and that I have a lot to learn and improve upon when it comes to that area. Thank you all for watching. I read a ton of different interesting articles and interviews and lots of cool tweets. I'm gonna be including them all in the description box. It's a huge subject and you should explore it on your own. Like this video if you hope that this can bring out something positive for Native American representation down the road. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the issue or your favorite Native American authors. Subscribe for new videos every week on media analysis, Disney, and intersectional feminism, and all of those things combined. I will see you next week. The noble savage is the crying environmentalist. The noble native. Nope.